just preparing to stream. Okay, that should be live now.
Over to you, Andy.
Okay, cool. Thank you all for joining tonight. Mayor Collier is feeling unwell, so I will be chairing the meeting. We send her our regards. We are live streaming this on YouTube via our channel. Becky will be doing the live tweet updates. Will all participants, town councillors, staff, please mute yourself until I ask you to speak. Please use the electronic blue or yellow hand to ask a question. Two ways of doing this are by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of your screen and selecting the blue icon, or the three little dots at the bottom. There could be a yellow hand at the bottom of your screen found by pressing the reactions button as well. Will councillors please vote using the blue or yellow hand, and then the vote will be recorded by our town clerk, Paul. Please forgive me if I need to end a discussion early and go to a vote for time's sake. We have, how many attendees do we have tonight?
8 just now.
Yep.
Okay, we have 8 registered attendees. Hello, all 8 of you. You're very welcome. Please can I ask that you pose questions through the Q&A board. We'll patch you in to speak once you've asked your question. Rachel will be managing this and will moderate questions. And before I go to the first agenda item for tonight, we're going to hand over to Mark Dorrington to do his Civic Awards that were delayed by COVID. So, Rachel.
Can I just ask that everybody also puts their hand up for the video record, because we can't see the blue hands on the video record. So when you're voting, can you do both? Thank you.
What Rachel said. But yes, yeah, Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you to Council for indulging me to do these very late awards. There are many privileges of being a Mayor of Frome. I can think of loads, as can the rest of you, but one of them is to give Civic Awards to people who I feel have been outstanding in their contribution to Frome society over the last year. This would normally be done at a lovely meeting in the town hall, and we'd all get together and drink tea and eat cake and have a chat and present flowers and hug and kiss and everything. But unfortunately, that's got boshed by the COVID, and so we're having to do this somewhat virtual way of doing it. Practically, yesterday, Nikki Mehta and I went out and saw the recipients and made sure they got their awards in a socially distanced way. And it was great to see them, talking to them from 6 feet away, but they know what I feel, and I've explained it all to them. So tonight is just the public way of me expressing my gratitude to the recipients. I came into working for the council after volunteering for different organisations in the town. I made it a point of my mayoral year to encourage volunteering, and this was exemplified when COVID hit and so many people in the town volunteered to help out in whichever way they can, and I thank them all for that. But I've picked 4 people who I know personally who have exemplified volunteering, and I want to celebrate with them individually. My first recipient is Radek Evans, who's sitting there with a Guinness hat on to celebrate Patrick's Day. Well done, Radek. I knew Radek mostly through Fair Frome, where he's been a constant volunteer, and also my voluntary bodyguard when I was mayor, service he offers to all mayors who take the post. It was only having talked to his sister Lenka that I realised actually how busy Radek is in the town. I've seen him trudging around in the rain, sorting out the notice boards and helping in the Rotary shop, sorting out the books, but he also volunteers, amongst others, for Active in Touch, the Carnival Club. He's on the committee for that, helping with the fundraising. He helps Frome Football Club with their recycling of their rubbish and sorting it out on match days. He has helped out the Cheese and Grain with the music and community events. He helps with the community fridge, and as I say, I see him mostly at Fair Frome with the community meals, the food at 5. So Radek, you're a great example to the rest of the town for people who can volunteer, make a difference to our colleagues. And it's even more impressive that you come from Westbury to do it. So thank you very much, Radek, and I'm glad I saw you yesterday.
Thank you very much, everyone. If you haven't seen what Mark showed me, this is what I got.
Oh, lovely.
And also a bunch of flowers.
And I hope your mum enjoyed the flowers.
Yes, it did. when I will give it to her. I want to say thank you very much for Mark for recognising my volunteering, and thank you very much for my mum who brought me up, and for everyone and all the Frome people, and especially thank to Richard Ackroyd who educated me to become who I was. And for all the other counsellors who I know and who I don't know about. But thank you very much.
I taught Radek how to be a bodyguard for the mayor, so I was the first.
Yeah,
well, I was very grateful for his help in keeping all the paparazzi off. It was very useful. So thank you, Radek, and thank you as my first recipient. You all need to know that I give you these awards personally, but they are on behalf of the council. I'm only the figurehead in this year. The second award is Rachel Clarke, who you will see on your screen in front of you. We all know Rachel as the neighbourhood sergeant for Frome, but this award is nothing to do with her police career. This award is for the consistent fundraising on behalf of Why We Hear You in the town. Rachel came to this charity after the sad passing of her mother and the help she got from Why, and she wanted to repay that, and she's done that in spades. Last year, when I was mayor, she was running a mile a day. I ran a couple of them with her, not all of them. Sometimes with the chief constable, sometimes with loads of other people who were turning out, and it was fantastic the support she was getting. It was especially great to be at her last mile, which I did with the rugby club on New Year's Eve, when we could announce that she'd raised that year alone £20,000. I think when what's happened there? Someone is Sheen Scare. So the that's better. Where was I? Yeah, so I think when I spoke to Rachel yesterday, she told me that so far her total fundraising for Why is now reaching something like £57,000. And we've all taken part in some of her world records. My back still aches from doing the world's longest row, the Skittles that never was, and we watched her running up and down the fire tower outside the library. So it's not only us who's recognised her, but in 29th of May last year, Rachel was told she won the accolade of Volunteer Fundraising of the Year in the National Fundraising Awards. 29th of May is particularly appropriate and apt for Rachel because that was her late mother's birthday, and all this fundraising has been done in memory of her mum. So Rachel, it was great to see you yesterday. I hope you enjoyed the flowers and you got the certificate, and thank you very much for everything you've done this year and every other year you've been doing it.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful certificate. I've been honoured to get a few of these in relation to my fundraising, but I particularly like this one. So thank you, Mark. And it was lovely to see you yesterday. And thank you for honouring me with it. And thank you for all of the counsellors and obviously everybody else in the community that's completely supported me. It's difficult at times because Rachel Griffin will probably nod now, but it's a fine line between my day job and fundraising, and I hope that I've been professional enough in both to gain the support, and it's ongoing. It's the 10th anniversary this year, so we're still going strong in the town, and we've created lots more fundraisers, which has been just phenomenal. So yeah, thank you all for continuing for the support, and yeah, for the recognition for Why, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Cheers. Thank you.
My third recipient is Jill Phone. Jill, many councillors will know Jill because when we could meet in a town hall, she actually came and took part in meetings and was asking stiff questions, often of Chris Stringer, about the state of various public spaces in the town. But it was all done in good humour, and it did raise a lot of questions, and it's great that we have that participation. I met Jill about 25 years ago. She was a good friend of my late father, and they used to work on the Talking newspaper together. Jill announced this year that as of March this year, she will be standing down as chair of the Talking newspaper, having been on it for 40 years. And so I spoke with her daughter, and she told me the other things she's been doing. Jill trained as a nurse at Barts and then moved to Frome, and worked at St Aldham's, which some of you will now know as flats, but it used to be a home especially for elderly people, and she was a nurse. She was a nurse there. She served on the council of St John's Church, governor of St John's School. Before the bypass was opened, they asked for people to count cars going by to see if we needed a bypass, and Jill threw herself into that and presented reports and graphs. Kept a photographic record of that. Particularly like that bit about the bypass, because my dad's company planted all the trees around the bypass. So when I drive around there, I think of him, and it's nice that Jill was involved in that as well. Committee of the Horticultural Society and sold cards with good causes. And she's still enthusiastic in the Frome Knit and Natter group, especially in the Natter bit, I should think. So as I say, it's a good point to remember Jill and to honour Jill, because she stands down as the role. And it's especially pertinent. Her husband, late husband, Alan, received a similar award in 2010 for his work on the Talking newspaper. So, Jill, I saw you yesterday. I know you're not on this. You may see a recording of it if your daughter shows it to you. So thank you very much from me. Great to see you yesterday.
And from Councillor Ackroyd, he says, the amazing Jill Phone. She does so much for the town and holds us all to account. Great choice. Thanks, Jill.
Yeah, I've threatened to teach her how to use Zoom so she can bug us virtually. So I don't know how that's going to work. Okay, my final recipient is Dawn Cunningham. Many of you won't know Dawn, but Dawn was the founder member of Frome Citizens Advice. And so, as you know, I've been a volunteer for Citizens Advice, and Jill was doing it for, Dawn was doing it for since 1973. She formed the original meeting that set up the Citizens Advice Bureau in Frome, and recruited the advisors, organised the training, publicity, premises. She'd on the steering committee for it. Dawn saw her first client in Frome Citizens Advice on the 16th of February 1974. Her first client was a woman who'd been deserted by her husband, leaving her with massive debts and the care of a disabled child. How little things have changed. Exactly the same things that are still presenting at Frome CAB today. Dawn was especially useful to me as someone who's baffled by the benefit system. Dawn's speciality was arguing for people's disability benefits. There are many people in the town today who are receiving disability benefits when they've been told by government that they shouldn't be having them. Dawn has taken people to tribunals and has got the benefits for those who most deserve them. There are many people in the town who owe Jill a lot. Dawn was working until late 2019 when she had to stand down, being diagnosed with a very serious illness. I was delighted to see her yesterday. She lives very close to me, but I don't see enough of her. And so I will make a point of doing that. And when I left her, she was off to watch the racing at Cheltenham. So I know that's another passion of hers. So Dawn, thank you very much for everything you've done for Citizens Advice in Frome and for the people in Frome that you've helped. Dawn, are you on there? Do you want to say something? Press the button. That's fine, we can talk later. But thank you to everybody for indulging me with these. I'm sure Anita will have her own set in a couple of months' time. Andy, thank you for giving me the time for that. And thank you to all the recipients for what you've done and receiving these awards the way you have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. Well done. Well done to all the winners, all very worthy. Let's do one more. Everyone, one more. Ah, beautiful. Moving on now to apologies for absence, declaration of councillors' interests, approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which was on the 20th of January this year, and the extraordinary meeting, which was on the 28th of October in 2020. I believe I'm passing this over to Paul Wynne.
Yep. Apologies, Scott, apologies, Andy, from Scott Ward and Anita Collier. That's all.
Okay. So I guess we're moving straight on now, or what we doing, Paul?
The next one, Andy, is just to ask if anyone wants to declare any interest
That's right.
in items on the agenda.
One. That's the one. Has anyone got any interests that they want to share with us?
So I can see Anne's hand up.
Okay, Anne, go for it.
Hello, Andy. I've got a personal, so non-financial interest in the Frome Independent. I'm a director, an unpaid director of that organisation, and they're one of the beneficiaries of the latest grants round. So I'm declaring that interest.
Okay, thank you very much. Richard, I see your hand up. Can I get some digital hands as well, just so I'm not making sure?
Yeah, same agenda item. I'm a trustee of Friends of the River Frome, one of the recipients of the grant, non-pecuniary, obviously.
Okay, thank you. Was there anyone else? Did I see Steve? Yeah, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Andy. I don't seem to have a digital hand, Andy, so I can't raise it. So okay. You'll have to make do with my own one. Yeah, just an interest in home share mandate via Fair Housing for Frome. Thanks.
Is that everyone?
There's Ali as well.
Ali, go for it.
Yeah, as I'm a director of Fair Housing for Frome, and I have a non-financial interest in home share.
Okay, all righty. Anyone else? I don't think I've got everyone on my screen. I should have a little tab to slide across, but it's disappeared. Okay. Should we do the minutes for the last? Yeah.
So the ones on the 20th of January we'll do first. They're distributed early on. John, have you got your hand up? No. So there's no questions on it, Andy. You need to just ask for a proposer and then a seconder.
Okay, can I have a proposer? Sarah, seconder Nick. And then I guess all in favour.
So that is unanimous. Can I just check, make sure I haven't counted anyone in when they're not in? So just wave and shout if you don't approve. So I think that is unanimous, Andy.
Excellent. So it would be the extraordinary meeting on the 28th of October 2020. So I guess I need a proposer for that. Let's go Richard Ackroyd, and a seconder for that, Steve Tanner, and then all in favour.
That's unanimous.
Okay. So we're moving on now to questions and comments from the public and councillors. Anyone? Rob?
Yes, it was really more just just wanted to congratulate Peter Wheelhouse in particular, but also the staff who put together the bid for the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, which I understand we've now got the full grant to. So I just wanted to say thanks very much. I'm very delighted to hear that we've got that and we can go ahead with that work.
Thank you. Richard.
On behalf of the Cheese and Grain board, they'd like to say thank you very much for the help that you've given them, that we've given them over the last year. First, initially in the grant that we gave them to keep them afloat, and now also for the work, the money that we're investing in the Cheese and Grain for the ventilation system. So that's a big thank you very much from the Cheese and Grain board.
Thank you. Nick Dove.
Thank you, Chair. Sheila's vanished. Just a point, a note went across an email saying she'd vanished, so she should be back on. I just wanted to say I've been doing a lot of walking around the town recently, and how magnificent lots of the areas that the Rangers have been looking after look. There's lots of really great spring bulbs, the kind of green areas look really special, the new bins look great, and the benches they put up earlier in the year in really nice locations. I think they've done a brilliant job. And my own favourite, there's a fantastic bench halfway up Catherine Hill, which is a very special place with planters next to it. So thank you very much to Paul and the team. The town really looks fantastic, I think.
Yeah. Who's next? Anyone else? Anyone else got anything else they want to add? No? Okay, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, I think Linda Oliver wanted to.
Okay, Linda.
I've asked Linda to post a question on the board.
Okay, so Linda's saying, oh no, Linda hasn't got anything.
Linda may have missed the beginning of the meeting where attendees are asked to post questions on the Q&A board.
Okay.
Linda, if you're having any difficulty doing that, put something in the chat and we'll facilitate again.
I'm sure we can come back to Linda, Andy, if at another point down the line.
Okay, no worries. All right. So shall I move on?
Yeah.
Okay. We are going to approve community grants now. That's what we're doing.
So Kate will start, I think, with just a sort of summary. Is that right, Kate? Hang on, Rachel's got your hand up. You're on mute.
Sorry, Linda would just like to make a comment on unitary if now is a good time.
Say that for the agenda item.
Okay.
Okay. So it's quite a long paper, but it's broken down into 3 parts. And I am hoping that you've all had a chance to have a quick look. So we'll start with the first section. So this is about community grants. In fact, the top and tail of the paper are based around community grants. And last year, because of COVID and over the last financial year, because of COVID, we suspended our community grants. We didn't know how much of that funding we were going to need for emergency support, but also we were acutely aware that there were quite a lot of funding that became available for local organisations through various funding streams, and we didn't want to duplicate that. So we paused our community grants. It meant that when we opened them a couple of months ago, just before Christmas, or just after Christmas, I think, with a relatively quick closing date, we were inundated with applications, which was great. And actually what we found was that organisations really haven't come to us over the last year asking for funding. So the timing was obviously right. Somerset Community Foundation had a very quick turnaround community COVID response grant, which many organisations benefited from. But we opened them at a time where we could see that there maybe was a bit of a gap and organisations were starting to plan for the year ahead. So we had a very long meeting with the Grants Advisory Panel. A week ago, we met for about 3.5 hours. We went through the applications in a lot of detail. They were assessed very briefly by myself and Laura just to make sure that everything that came with the application was correct, so that they gave us a copy of their accounts and also demonstrated that their constitution was in order. And what you see in the paper is some recommendations for approval. So the grants that have been recommended for approval are in Table 1. Table 2 gives you the grants that haven't been recommended for approval and a précis of why that is. And so I guess at this stage, it's to ask if there are any questions and to recommend that we move to the first set of recommendations, which Laura will bring us up on the screen in a sec, if that's all right.
So, Andy, if there are any questions from anyone, I see Rob Collett's got his hand up.
Rob?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether you could give me a little bit more of an idea when you, in Table 2, where you say we would like more information to better understand the wider benefits for the residents of Frome. You've put that down 3 times.
Yep.
Is it clear to the applicants what it is that you're really looking for?
Yeah, and what we will do when we write to the applicants, we will write back to them and give my contact details so they can talk through in a bit more detail any of the specifics around their grant. So one of the questions and one of the criteria is that there is clear evidence that the grant will directly benefit residents of Frome. And in the scoring and the discussion that councillors on the grants advisory panel have, they look at that in quite a lot of detail. So it's really difficult to do a kind of general cost benefit analysis across the board, because some organisations obviously need more resource to support fewer people, depending on the type of activity it is. And other organisations can support loads of people with very little resource. So there's not a kind of blanket rule, but it's something around, where we're asking for more detail, it will be because there wasn't enough detail supplied for councillors to make a decision based on what they can see in front of them. And so what we're always saying is please come back to us in the future as well. If we can iron these things out and help you shape it, this is an opportunity for us to help you with your application process. Any other questions?
Doesn't appear to be.
So we could go to the vote on those first 4 recommendations.
First 3 recommendations.
First 3.
Yeah.
Oh yes, the mayor's grants aren't there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first 3.
Would you just bring them up again so we can have a look, Laura, please?
Would it help if I read them out quickly?
Yep, do that as well.
So to agree the recommendations for grants Table 1, to delegate authority to the Community Development Manager to ensure the recommended conditions are met and review the impacts of this funding as appropriate. And the third recommendation is to agree the creation of an EMR, or I should have said that an EMR to enable a new grants round to be opened tomorrow with a closing date at the end of April. So because we hadn't opened the grants process earlier in the year, we would like to use the remaining amount from that pot to have another round with very quick turnover and short succession.
A proposer and a seconder, Andy, maybe.
Yes. Okay. So proposer, please, Mark Dorrington. Seconder, Richard Ackroyd. And then all in favour.
Mm-hmm. I think that's unanimous. Did I get that right? Did anyone not put their hand up? Can you shout now? That's great. Thanks. That's unanimous, Rich. Sorry, Rich. Just written down it. Andy, that's unanimous.
Oh, thanks. Recommendation 2.
So the next table, the next sort of section of this paper is just to give you a brief précis of the grants that have been awarded through the Mayor's Fund. We have £5,000 in that every year. And as you can see, we haven't awarded very many. We are actively publicising the Mayor's Fund at the moment. Again, we think this is because many organisations pause their activity, put themselves on hold, and they're just coming out of the woodwork now. So it's a really great opportunity for us to be promoting something that is a very quick turnaround. So this is for ratification, as the Mayor's delegation for that is already with Paul to sign off, and we bring this to you as a list for information and ratification.
Okay.
So we just need to propose and second that as well, Andy.
Right. Okay. Proposer for that one, please. We'll go with John Nelson. Seconder, we'll go with Andy Palmer. And then all in favour.
That's unanimous.
So the third part of this paper is a proposal, actually, based on a co-design project that we've been doing. So we agreed last year that we would review the grants, and in particular the community grants and the major grants, and look at how they were being allocated, what that looked like, and we would do that as part of a co-design process. And we've been working with Public Square, who are an outside organisation that have facilitated a series of meetings with councillors, with staff, but most importantly with grant recipients and other residents, members of the public themselves. They have told us there are lots of things that they would like to happen, and we've adapted, as I think we've previously told you, we adapted the application form to make it easier for applicants. We have been very proactive in sharing the fact that we can offer advice and support so applicants can have help filling them in. But there were a few tweaks that were proposed around the grants advisory panel. In particular, they would like, they recommended that members of the public are included in that panel, and that panel is a public panel so that applicants and other residents are able to hear some of the conversations that happen and listen to why the decisions are being made and how they're being made around grants. And then finally, we looked really carefully at how we could be more responsive, so how we could have more grant rounds in a year. And one of the things that has always been a little bit clunky for us is traditionally grants come to town matters to be agreed and signed off. As you can tell, we're at council today because we couldn't fit it into the timescale around town matters. There wasn't one at the right time. And the same happens at other times in the year. We often come a cropper in the summer because there's a town matters meeting at the beginning of August, but that doesn't necessarily fit with the grants advisory group meeting making recommendations. So we're proposing to do just a little bit of a tweak really here and make it a hybrid of how we deliver the mayor's grants and how we support the planning advisory panel. And so putting the two together, we've got a series of recommendations, and I just wonder if you could bring those up, Laura, for us. So we're proposing to delegate authority to the town clerk in very close consultation with the grants advisory panel to award community grants. That means that the grants advisory panel would meet 4 times a year, and they would make recommendations to the town clerk, who's then able to say, yep, these look like they meet all the terms and conditions, and that information would then come back to town matters for ratification in the same way as we've just done for the mayor's grants. it is recommended that we delegate authority to the Community Development Manager to work with the Grants Advisory Panel on developing a working model for this group and how it might meet, to include residents joining the group. And we would like to trial that over the next 6 months. And then finally, to review this way of managing the community grants decisions at Town Matters in October. So that would give us a good 6 months, 2 meetings within that, 2, maybe 3 actually within that period of time, to see how that process works, and to come back with a review and to tell you how it's gone and what we propose to do going forwards. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Great. Was that Rob?
Yes, it was me again. Yeah. Just wondering whether you have any ideas about how you're going to select members of the public to this august board.
Well, we've yet to discuss that in detail. There are lots of different ways we could do it, and what we don't want it to be is a popularity contest. So we just need to carefully think through what their role would be in that panel, whether it's going to be the same people each time or whether we're inviting different people to join us, and who the best placed people are. It would be great to look at how we can make sure we have a kind of broad demographic spread represented over the course of the year, and it might not be just in the one meeting. So yeah, there's definitely some thought to go into that in the next few weeks, and any input we'd value.
And did Public Square have any thoughts on that?
No, they have done it in lots of different ways. So there are models around the country where grants are made purely by panels of residents, by a mixture of panels of residents and councillors together. They're done by vote, so in a participatory budgeting kind of way. So what Public Square have been able to do is give us examples, but they've really facilitated the co-design group to make the decisions rather than them advising us on what we should do, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
Lizzie?
Thank you. And 2 questions, a comment and 2 questions. The comment is first of all to say thank you to Kate and everybody involved in reviewing the process, and particularly Mark, who has been thinking about this quite deeply for some time, and is looking very well on it. So thank you for that. 2 questions. One was, what are the implications of this staged process for the phasing of funding through the year? So, does it mean that there's an advantage to being in early, or, if people, do we run out of money later in the year? That sort of side of things. And then the other is, obviously the grant funding is great, but one of the things that we've always talked about is ongoing support to people who do get grants and people who don't get grants, to help those organisations become more resilient and to become more sustainable without our help in future. So how does that sort of just still weave into the thinking?
Sure. So in answer to your first question, I imagine that we would divvy up the funding in the same way we have always done, or we haven't always done, but we have done for the last 7 years, in that we take the total pot and we split it over the number of rounds proposed, so that there is a certain amount in each grant round. It means decisions are going to be way harder than they were this time, because we had a nice big pot this time. But it does mean, and we did discuss this last time we met actually, that it's really important that we can be responsive throughout the year. So if we've spent all the money at the beginning of the year, it makes it really difficult to be responsive to new ideas towards the end of the year. And then your second question, you might have to remind me, Lizzie.
Support to build the sustainability and resilience of those organisations.
So we do have a programme of work in our work programme that is specifically based around supporting organisations. We have a training programme. We offer bespoke advice and support. And I can tell you there are a lot of people coming for that at the moment. There's a lot of ideas coming out of the woodwork. It's a really interesting bit of the job, and a lot of it actually is about supporting people to find and meet and pair up with other organisations that already exist or are doing similar projects. So yeah, we have a programme of support, and we want to continue to grow and build that based on the current needs of our community organisations, which have changed in the last few years.
Thank you.
Andy Palmer.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, it's more of a comment, Kate, really. I mean, as somebody who was involved in the grants committee, I think for the first time this year, which has been a really, really sort of eye-opening and interesting process to look at. I think I would certainly be in favour of the grants advisory group going to full committee status if that's something that we decide needs to happen. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of work that goes into it, and even that last meeting, you know, the conversations and the analysis that went into it before we came up with effectively the proposals for each grant award. I just feel that in a way it makes it a bit harder if the grant advisory group isn't decision making, because effectively it always then has to come back to a meeting where, you know, other councillors who haven't been on that committee might not have got as deep an insight into those applications, and therefore are then voting on it. So I mean, I don't know what the solution is necessarily, but I would certainly be in favour of it becoming a full decision making committee.
And I guess this gives us an opportunity over the next 6 months to move in that direction ahead of the following year, when we might formalise it as a formal committee. If you like, this is a sort of a hybrid solution in between as a stepping stone. Any other questions? Shall we move to the recommendations and vote on those?
Let's do that.
Does anybody want to see them again, or are you happy to vote?
It'd be good just to pop them up.
Yeah, let's pop them up one more time.
So Andy, we need a proposal in a second.
Okay. All right, who wants to propose? I see Anne, seconded by Nick, and then all in favour.
That's unanimous.
Wonderful.
Andy, can I just say thanks to Kate and all the members of the committee, which I currently chair, for the work that we've all had to do this year, and with the work with Public Square. I think we are getting there in the end. Not everyone's going to be happy, but we will come up with the best solution that we possibly can. And if I never see another jam board as long as I live, I'll be quite happy. That's a word I didn't know at the beginning of the year. So thanks, Kate, thanks all, and thanks for everyone who's been working on this behind the scenes. Thank you.
Should we clap again? Because we've been quite good at this tonight. Let's do this. Thanks. Lovely. Are we moving on now to agenda item 5, which is update on the marketplace phase 2 improvements, and to approve additional expenditure. And I'm not sure who's leading this. I do apologise.
That'd be Peter.
Pete Wheelhouse, you're up.
Thank you, Andy. Laura, can you share your screen, please, and bring up the first slide? Okay, so as you know, the second phase of marketplace works was substantially completed in October. And this presentation is to share the outcomes of the work and the financial outturn. Next slide, please, Laura. As many of you will be aware, that the scheme has been long in the planning and over the years has been the subject of considerable public engagement. The driving force for this scheme has come from the community and its desire to see the marketplace become more pedestrian friendly by making it easier to get around and to reduce traffic congestion, of which the historical alignment of the bus laybys has been a major cause. Next screen, please. Sorry, next slide. So in my report that I circulated, I promised some before and after pictures, which the first set you'll see here. And this is a shot which is a view from Bath Street looking down towards Barclays and the Cork Street junction. The first image on the left shows that area as it was before the work started. So you'll recall that in front of the Coventry Building Society, there was a police bay, and we also had railings around the Cork Street junction, which constrained pedestrian movement. But after the works were completed, you'll see that we have a much wider pavement. The police bay is gone, and the railings have also gone. And so you've got an improvement in the pavements in that area. And also it's an area in which pedestrians can more freely move about. Next slide, please. And this is a shot just on the corner of Cork Street and Marketplace. Again, you'll see the replacement of the railings by a series of bollards. The paving has also been improved in that area quite substantially. And the next slide, please. And this is the opposite corner. So I've called it the NatWest corner here. So outside NatWest Bank. And you'll see on the left how the pavement looked before the work started. Quite a messy scene there, really, with a variety of materials making up the pavement and also the railings. And in the second photograph on the right, you'll see how it looks today. Hopefully you'll agree that that is an improvement. The next slide, please. The next point I'll address really is the congestion that historically was caused by the alignment of the bus laybys. So the picture on the left was taken before the work was completed. And you'll remember that when even a single bus, particularly one that was operated by First, was parked in that lay-by, that it would cause congestion, and that was exacerbated if you had buses parked on both sides of the road. But on the right, you'll see that the function of widening the bus lay-bys is that two buses can now sit on the side alongside Costa and Superdrug, and the traffic can move more freely. And that this is designed to reduce the congestion, and ultimately, we hope, will improve air quality in the marketplace, which traditionally has not been good. We will be monitoring that over time, and we will come back to you with periodic reports on the changes in air quality. So next slide. And this shows the change that was made as a result of an investment in a new bus shelter. And hopefully you'll agree with me that that's a definite improvement. And you'll see that we have incorporated within the bus shelters on both sides of the road images of work by J.W. Singer to mark the anniversary of the birth of J.W. Singer. And that was part of an exhibition in Frome, but we have replicated those images on the bus shelter. Next slide, please. Just before I talk about what we couldn't deliver, I just wanted to add that, and they're not included in any images, but in addition to the work that I have shown in earlier images, we've also installed a loading bay outside the George to make it easier for local businesses to accommodate deliveries. It's been a perennial problem how to get larger vehicles parked without impacting on the pavements, but we now have a much larger loading bay outside the George. There's also a build out outside the George to shorten the crossing distance between the George and the Bull Cross. And we have also improved the disabled parking in Cork Street. But just to move on to what this slide shows, there were things that we couldn't deliver. And those two things were courtesy crossings and a complete resurfacing of the carriageway. On the courtesy crossings, they were in the plan from the start, but unfortunately they had to be pulled from the contract at the very last minute under the instruction of the County Highways Department, owing to a change in government regulations. So that was disappointing, but unfortunately it was out of our control. And the other thing is that we didn't have the budget to run to a complete resurfacing job on the highway, and County weren't prepared to fund it either. Now, on the crossings, we understand that these are being looked at again nationally as part of a drive to encourage more active travel. And we will be exploring with County whether it is possible to deliver these as part of the School Street project and ultimately in the centre of the town. So we haven't given up on that. We will continue to explore that one with County. And on the resurfacing, we're committed to pressing County Highways to pay for a complete resurfacing job. So next slide, please. So now to the financial outturn. And as my report has highlighted, the final bill for the project is projected to be £365,966. Now that represents an overspend of £36,250. As you'll have seen from the paper, the overspend is accounted for primarily by COVID-related expenditure in terms of a temporary closure of Marketplace and access only for Palmer Street and King Street, and the signage and supervision needed for that. The need to put in place COVID-related welfare facilities for the construction workforce, and that's something we have a legal obligation to do as the client. And the other major overrun item was the installation of new services and the diversion of existing ones, once it became clear when we broke ground that that work was necessary. And some of that work was done under the instruction of County Highways. Next slide, please. And I've already trailed one of these items, which is that the intention is that we will have a conversation with County Highways about how they can contribute more, because they have already contributed 50,000 towards the cost of the work in the Marketplace, but we'll be looking for a further contribution with regard to some of the overrun items. And also we'll be looking for a commitment to resurfacing, but we will also seek a contribution by Mendip towards the COVID-related expenditure. You'll be aware that in the past we have been able to secure a contribution from Mendip towards COVID-related emergency expenditure that we had to get involved with last year. And I won't move to the recommendation at this stage. Obviously, I'm aware that there may be a number of questions from councillors about this presentation. So I'll stop the presentation there and over to you.
My bad. Any questions?
Go to recommendations.
anyone have any questions?
Rachel.
Rachel.
Hi, Drew would like to ask a question, please.
Sorry, Paul Horton had his hand up first. Perhaps that's not visible. Is that right, Paul?
Sorry, Paul, I didn't see you.
Yeah, I don't know if I had my hand up before Drew, but I'm happy to go first or after Drew.
You go first, Paul.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, and thanks, Peter, for your presentation. I've got a couple of kind of main questions, really. I mean, I think it's obvious, probably from the overspend, that this scheme hasn't gone completely to plan. But my first question or comment really is around council involvement and communication with councillors during this process. As you rightly say in your report, I believe we approved implementation of this project on the 18th of March last year. And at that time, we were expecting a two-way traffic arrangement whereby the contractors would use one carriageway to be working in while traffic continued to flow in the other carriageway. And then we had lockdown. And as you say, things changed because of lockdown. And you came back to us with a proposal that instead of the original arrangement to have the one-way traffic, we could actually close the whole of Marketplace to allow the contractors to work, and for the other carriageway to be used for pedestrians and cyclists to continue to move around town in a socially distant way. And that's what we understood was the proposal. We also agreed that work should go ahead during lockdown because it made sense, shops were closed, etc., etc. However, what wasn't explained to us at the time was that working during lockdown or during COVID was going to create extra expense, partly in the road closure arrangement, and partly, as you say, in the to look after the contractors, etc., welfare expenses. We weren't, as far as I know, and maybe I can't speak for all councillors, but certainly I had no knowledge that any of those arrangements would cause extra expense. We didn't find out about this until actually fairly recently, certainly after all the work was finished. So personally, I kind of feel really disappointed by that. I think we should have been kept much more informed of that, and certainly when you came to us to ask us to approve work going ahead during lockdown, we should have had that kind of information to be able to make that decision, because now we're being asked to approve the overspend, but really we should have been asked that before the work started, I think. So that's really my first point, really, just to express a bit of disappointment. I would certainly have liked much better communication to go on during the work, and personally I feel that, you know, I would probably go so far as to say that I think as a council body, we deserve a bit of an apology, really, for the current situation. But I'll leave that in your hands. The other thing, which you did touch upon, and I'm pleased to say, is that the overriding objective for this scheme was to improve the way pedestrians move around the town centre. That was, as you say, has been debated and promoted for a number of years, and we all really supported that because it's desperately needed in Frome town centre. However, the outcome of the scheme, unfortunately, has achieved the opposite. We haven't achieved that. There's a few things that I absolutely applaud, like the getting rid of the railings at the end of Cork Street. Some of the work on surfaces, etc., is great. However, ultimately, because we haven't got the courtesy crossings that we hoped, and I understand that it's not Frome Town Council's fault that that's happened, but we haven't got them. But we have improved the traffic flow. We've actually managed to make it more attractive for people to drive through the town centre. Therefore, we've actually made it more dangerous for pedestrians. We haven't achieved our objective. So really, I suppose it's a question, an ongoing question. What are we going to do to meet that objective? I think it's really, really critical. And I know a number of people feel the same, not just amongst councillors, but amongst the community, that Frome Town Centre is a dangerous place to be sometimes as a pedestrian, and movement from one side to the other is not easy. And I think because we had that as an objective, we still owe it to the community to try and meet that objective in some way. So I understand that we're hoping that we might still get the courtesy crossings, but I think there's probably a few other scenarios that we might explore to achieve the same thing. And I really think that we should be exploring those with haste, really, without delay. So that's it for me. Thank you.
John's got his hand up, I think, Andy.
John?
Hello. I just wanted to support what Paul just said on the cost overrun, but also on the pedestrian aspect. And I think there could be some cheap, relatively speaking, compared to what's been spent already, cheap fixes for to make it more pedestrian, like pedestrian zones and things, which are like about paint and sort of things like that. But I definitely agree with what Paul was just saying.
Anyone else have anything to say?
Hello. Rachel's got a hand up.
I've just that Drew's here now to make a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm making a comment not as a councillor but as a resident of Frome. And firstly, I want to say I've got considerable sympathy for Frome Town Council and the officers who have worked really hard to bring this to fruition. And I know it's taken a really long time and a lot of persistence. And I know nothing is perfect, but I know it's difficult. However, I've got to say I wholeheartedly agree with the comments of Paul and John, that I think that it's kind of an unintended consequence that the traffic moves now much quicker. The town centre is effectively cut in two, with crossing times much longer than they were before, and the traffic speed's much higher. So yeah, it was successful. It has moved buses out of the way, and yeah, I understand the desire to lessen the particulate pollution, but it's just made it, it's made it into a real runway for tricked out cars now, belting through at all hours. It's quite something. So I would say I just want to agree with John and Paul, and I want to ask the council, please, we all need to work together on this, have another look at it. And I believe this plan was something that's been in place for many years. And I think times have moved on. And I think that I would like to encourage the town council, with the help of county and of course district council, to take a second look at this again, to see, if there is another answer to this endlessly difficult question, which I know the council has done its very best on. And I admire them for that. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Anyone else? Rachel, you've got your hand up.
Just to say that Lenka has commented to say she agrees with Paul. She got the impression that pedestrians would have priority over cars in the planned scheme. Oh, and I believe that Sheila has her hand up too.
Sheila.
Hi, thank you, Andy. Thanks, everybody. This is a ferociously difficult one to get right, isn't it? Because previously, I think the reason why buses were given such a small space was to put them in the road to slow traffic down and encourage a lot of other traffic to go around the bypass. I mean, it was a crazy way of doing it, and we know what the consequence was of that. And so now we've moved the buses out of the way to stop all that backing up of traffic. But of course, what's happened is cars are able to speed through. So there's something needed to prevent or to encourage people to go around the bypass who don't need to come through the centre of town. And of course, a lot of people do need to come through town, or it is the best way to get across town. And it didn't help that Rodden Road was blocked off and there was all sorts of, circulatory traffic that couldn't happen recently. So it's caused a lot of problems in town. I think it is really hard to sort this one out, and certainly to sort it out simply. But I think it is, with anything that goes on in town, it's worth re-looking at, or constantly looking at ways to improve it. But with the benefit of hindsight, i.e. to know what happens when we make a small decision in one place and the implications that it happens elsewhere, of what happens elsewhere. The other thing I'd just like to clarify, please, Peter, we've got a few outstanding items on your list of things that need to be done, and therefore there is, they've been included in the overspend budget, but what guarantee do we have that there won't be a further overspend?
Andy, I think Rob has got his hand up. Maybe we could sort of take all of those at the end of the questions.
Okay, Rob.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Peter. It's good to be reminded of what, through your photographs, of what it did look like. So yes, undoubtedly that, in some ways has been an improvement. I just want to lend my own weight to Paul and others' comments that, it's quite clear that we need to do something more to about the traffic going through the centre of town. It's just unacceptable the way it is. And I think we just need to take that on the chin and move on and start to take steps in whatever way seems feasible to address the problem. And the question I have, which is in relation to the recommendation, is that the suggestion is we take the overspend to be funded from the Saxon Vale Legacy EMR. And I want to ask, are there any other options other than that?
Andy, before Peter comes in, can I just sort of make a general comment? Would that be okay?
Yeah, go for it.
I think I can't speak for Peter here, but I'm really disappointed with the negative approach that councillors have made this evening, those ones that have spoken. I think if you look at the scheme, the only things that didn't happen were the courtesy crossings. I think it's really important to look on the positives on this. The courtesy crossings were completely out of our control, and the performance of the highways was appalling, in my view. But that's not a finger you can point at this council or the staff that were managing the project. Paul's point about communication through the project, we can always do more communication. What we try to do is pitch it at just the right level, whether it's enough, but not too much and not too little. I'm sorry if Paul thinks that we didn't do that. The choices that we had through the project about closing it and keeping it open for cyclists, they weren't choices we made. We had no choices to make. So it wasn't about coming back to councillors and asking to make different decisions, Paul. There were no choices to make. So your point was about being informed more on a day-to-day basis. And I think Peter and I will take that one back without any problem. I think as a result, the scheme was delivered. Okay, it costs more, but we didn't plan for a pandemic. And I think that needs to be borne in mind as well. And the world hasn't moved on. The objective was to let the traffic flow through the town centre better. That was one of the original things that we were asked to do 10 years ago. So I think it's no point in moving the goalposts after the project has been completed. And to move on to the next scheme, where's the money going to come from? Because it ain't going to come from the county highways. So you need to think about, we must move on to the next thing. And John's point about there are some cheap answers. There are never, ever cheap answers on highway schemes. We know that from this experience. And jokingly, Peter and I have said to each other, the lesson we've learned from this scheme is never, ever, ever do another highway scheme, because frankly, being the client in a highway scheme was an appalling experience. And it's not one that I can recommend you do as a council, because you can see our fingers have been burnt by this, but that's what happened. So my heart sinks when you say we just need to carry on, because actually if we will, to the extent of trying to persuade Sheila, try and persuade not to demand highways to resurface the place, which will be a vast improvement. So I completely agree, but they refuse once on this because they haven't got budgets, because they're capped by government. And I think the combined points that I'm making need to be borne in mind. You know, we have slogged as a council and as staff on this project, and to have the conclusion of it, but you didn't tell us all about it. It wasn't very good. You made actually the thing worse, is really, really disheartening, and I'm very disappointed. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Paul. I'd like to give Peter the opportunity to speak now.
Paul, thanks very much. And thanks for all of your questions. I appreciate it's an emotive subject. Just pick up on a couple of the points. I think Paul has answered most of those that have been raised, but there were a couple of points that came up towards the end. So there was a point that Sheila raised about whether there's a possibility that the cost of the additional work that needs to be completed will be over what we estimate. I think that the likelihood is very small indeed on that one, Sheila. We've already agreed figures with the contractor. They've got to come in and get it done now, and we're just trying to sort out a date when they can do it. Rob, I think you had a question about the recommendation. And in fact, following consultation with councillors earlier this week, we've come forward with a slightly different recommendation to the one that's printed. But obviously we'll come to that in a moment. I think the only other point I would make is that in terms of cost, the goalpost kept moving throughout this project. And as the paper highlighted, some of the negotiations weren't actually completed with the contractor until very recently. And so it wasn't possible for me to give you any certainty around some of those figures until very late in the day. In an ideal world, I would have come to you with that certainty much earlier, but it wasn't possible. We were in the hands of the contractor, and we only finalised the negotiations, as I say, very recently. We did manage to get the final bill reduced by about £15,000, which I was pleased with. Obviously, it wasn't enough. We still face an overspend of just over £36,000. I think that hopefully between what Paul has said and what I've said, we've covered the points that have been raised.
Thank you, Peter. Rachel, your hand's up first, I believe.
So a final point from Martin Dimmery. He says you would be happy to listen to any complaints about county highways and forward them. Linda, John and I supported this scheme to bring £50,000 to Frome, and we would have expected a good service to have been provided.
Peter and I will talk to Martin. Thanks ever so much for that, Martin.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Paul Horton, is your digital hand up from earlier, or is it up for a new?
No, I put it up again, Andy.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's hear from you then.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to really come back on Paul's comments. Really, I'm afraid I have to kind of express disappointment too, Paul. I think that you're sorry to say, but your defensive response to our comments is disappointing and doesn't really help us learn from this and move forward. We need on these things to have an open and honest debate, I think, and if you become defensive when we say things you don't like, I don't think that really helps, I'm sorry to say. I wasn't, for instance, demanding to be kept informed on a daily basis. The reality is that we went right through this whole project without any information after we'd agreed to go ahead on a basis which didn't actually happen. So I think just a little bit of information to kind of say, well, why is it going ahead in a way that we hadn't agreed, is one thing. I think Peter perhaps might have just clarified the finance. As I said earlier, I think that it would have been good to know that it was going to cost more closing the marketplace and going ahead during lockdown. I think what Peter just said suggested that he didn't actually know that it was going to cost more at that time. Therefore, I think there's perhaps something to learn from that, that maybe we just need to be kind of a bit more clear on how these different options are going to affect finances. That's no criticism of Peter in his negotiation. That's just something to learn for future projects, I think. But in order to learn, we have to acknowledge that there are weaknesses and mistakes have been made. So that's all I'm asking for, really. And I'm not, I'm not attacking Paul and I'm not attacking Peter. I just would like an open and honest, clear conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. I'm going to go to Ali.
Yeah, I mean, what this illustrates to me is it's a kind of local authority project that this particular administration didn't make the decision to do, and the difficulty of staff who have to carry out work with money that's already been earmarked on a decision made 2 administrations ago. Not that that's wrong or right, but it just, for me, is as if candidates, when we were voted in, we said we wanted to be nimble. And that is so hard when we're working with this 3-tier system and things are happening which are out of our control. So I kind of do feel disappointed along with everybody, I think, about what's happened, but it really just illustrates to me that the longer any project takes, the more things change, and how we can become more nimble in our thinking about what might change and support staff and have just a bit more, I don't know, creativity maybe about how we can shift in projects and not start to kind of put the blame at the moment on anybody.
Thank you, Ali. Richard.
I don't think it's fair to say that we weren't informed all the time. I think we did have regular bulletins from Peter. I know he works hard, and I think there was the COVID thing got in the way, and that was unplanned. Nobody could see that. I'm as disappointed as anybody else that we haven't got any crossing points, but we have got a heck of a lot of other good things about the town. The pavements are so much better. There's all that space at the top. The removal of the railings, I think that looks great. And there are actually more places I can cross the road than there used to be. And okay, I've got to be nimble-footed sometimes. 20-mile-an-hour zone there, we could try and enforce that a bit more. We've got possibilities going forward of maybe reinstating the crossing points, as Peter explained. So let's not be too negative about this, but I do kind of agree. I'd like to finish it if we can, and it's not a personal criticism of anybody, but I would like to see it a bit more pedestrian friendly in terms of crossing the road and slowing the traffic rather than stopping it. But overall, most of the things we set out to do have been done. But it's just a shame that the crossings didn't happen.
Thank you, Richard. I believe Maxine, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I actually want to back a lot of what Ali and Rich have just said. It's a real toughie. We're the lowest, well, I don't know, we are the best, but we are the bottom tier of local government. And in this case, we were the clients. And I really am glad that our county councillors are listening to this, because it has been really tough doing what we've done in COVID and delivering what we've delivered in COVID. And I really would like to see, and I know this is possibly a vain hope, but possibly not, I would really like to see County Council support us help us with some of this overspend. I know they're strapped as well. I know everybody is, but none of us could help COVID, and none of us could help what's happened with COVID. And so it seems to me a good gesture, and I really think this is something that we're going to be watching going towards unitary, because in future, you know, we will be very careful about being clients again, and you know, we're going to need to do a lot more partnership working, because we as the lowest or bottom or best tier of government really do need the support of people above us when it comes to helping us with our costs on something like this. And so I am putting it out there to our county councillors who are listening. Please, could you support us and see if we can get some help with that overspend? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maxine. Has anyone else got anything that they want to add? Lizzie?
Thanks, Andy. I'm going to do my kind of standard rallying call to Frome to be Fromey, which is to say, you know, we got some good things. I'd forgotten, I don't go into town very much because, you know, I'm locked in my house. So actually I'd forgotten a lot of the pavement improvements, and I remembered the railings had gone. But it was good to be reminded of that. There are frustrations, obviously, but okay, this is now the starting point for thinking the next thing. And Paul, I'm sorry, we're going to come and talk to you about roads because we really want to, but we want to do it in a kind of creative and forward-thinking way. This is Frome. What are the exciting things that we can plan as town opens up again? Do we get the chance to shut down the town centre occasionally? We've talked about this as a group. Could we have an occasional Saturday or Sunday shutdown? Reclaim the streets for pedestrians, reclaim the streets for cyclists. We've got the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, which congratulations to those involved in getting the funding for that. That's going to give us a platform for really looking at these issues in some detail across the town, not just in the town centre. And okay, if courtesy crossings aren't allowed, what is? What's new? What's exciting? What's the latest wave in cool crossing points for people? So let's maybe focus ahead and kind of, let's find a new Frome. And if it doesn't exist, let's invent it. It's, you know, just take over. It's Frome. Let's make it a yes, look back, reflect, learn, but also let's look at this as the next creative challenge, and let's make Paul learn to love road projects again. That's it.
I feel that I'm conscious of time, but I know this is emotive and everyone is passionate about this. I don't want to move this on and mute the conversation, so to speak. Does anyone else have anything to say? Are we okay to move on, or what would you like to do?
Rachel, I think Martin wanted to speak, did he?
Yeah.
Martin.
Sorry, I'm unmuted now. Hello. Yeah, thanks for letting me in. Yeah, in terms of county highways, I may have said this at other meetings, but frankly, it's something of a law unto itself. No committee sits and decides which roads are going to have potholes mended. I've tried numerous times to get signage changed. I think we all know from the parking review how difficult it is to get double lines put down, and the planning applications and what the costs are. So for this project to be carried out by the town council was remarkably ambitious. I'm sorry if it's felt that the county highways department were not as supportive as they should have been. And as I've said in the written point there, that I'm happy to take that back. But highways is an absolute minefield. And I think personally, I'm prepared to go back and ask for this money or a contribution. I think the chances of getting it are probably zero. The budget is spent, you know, probably 2 years in advance. Things are organised well in advance. Yes, you took on a very ambitious project, and I would say, I think, I know the other councillors may be on the call. We looked at the plans and we thought the plans looked good. We were happy to lend it our support, and yeah, I was certainly disappointed in the lack of the crossings, and maybe that's something we could return to if the law changes. but certainly keeping the traffic flow going, that's good. It's a shame that the byproduct of that is people are driving faster, despite the fact that 20-mile-an-hour signs are put at the top of the hill accesses into Frome. But yes, we're prepared to help, but it's not going to be easy to get any money out of county. I've tried for 4 years. It's very hard.
Thank you, Martin. Are we okay to move on? Is everyone? I don't want to move this on and people feel like they have missed a chance.
Andy, can Laura just put the recommendation up, please?
Yes, please, yeah.
So following informal chats with councillors over the last week or so, this is the revised recommendation from the original one that was in the report about the source of the budget. So Sarah, Peter and I will explore other options other than the Saxon Vale earmark reserve. So that needs to be voted on, Andy.
Okay. Can we go back to the, thank you. Okay, so need a proposer for this, Nick Dove, and I'll need a seconder for this, Richard Ackroyd, and then all those in favour.
I think that is majority. John, I can't see your hand up, and Paul, I can't see yours up. Is that correct? Paul, you've got a yellow hand up, but not your physical hand. Are you voting in favour?
My yellow hand is up, yeah.
Great. So, okay. So it's just John voting against it. So that's majority. Oh, hang on, John.
I didn't vote against it. I'm abstaining from this vote.
All right, still majority. Thanks, Andy.
Okay. Right. Where are we now? Item 6 is response to the government's consultation on the proposals to establish a unitary council in Somerset. And again, forgive me, I'm not 100% sure who's leading this. Is it Maxine?
No, it's me.
It's you, Paul.
I'll come in later.
Ah.
So just for those of you who are looking for real excitement, it's the unitary project. All that stuff about grants and marketplace, this is where it's at. As you can see from the report, it's in 3 parts. One is that the government's consulting at the moment, consulting the public on whether to opt for the stronger Somerset proposal or one Somerset proposal, and the minister may decide something completely different. I think it's unlikely, but that's a distinct possibility. So what I've done, I've read through in quite a lot of detail both the one Somerset and the stronger Somerset proposals, and you'll see from the text, but also the detail of the draft response, that I'm not proposing that we come down either way. I think to an extent, the boundary of a new unitary doesn't really matter. What matters, I think, is the way that that new unitary interacts with the community, and particularly for us, the parish council sector. And that's the kind of tone that I've put through the draft response. I won't say any more about the draft response. If I just go on to the next thing, and then if there's any questions before Maxine comes in, then maybe that'll be the best way. For people who aren't councillors who are listening to this, councillors had an informal discussion with 2 unitary experts in the town, and Peter, Sarah and myself, and it was decided informally there to recruit someone to help us influence the upcoming shadow unitary authority. So what we've done with councillors' informal blessing is to work up a brief for that advisor. We've put feelers out around sort of people in the know who might know people that might know people. We haven't come up with anyone yet, so the next stage is to sort of advertise that post. So that's the second recommendation. Is really, it's a ratification, because I'm doing what you've already asked me to do. So there's two. There's the draft response for decision or approval, if you like, and the second one is the ratification of the brief for the advisor. I'm just wondering, Andy, whether if Maxine carries on, there may be some questions that might do all three of that. So would that be all right? Over to you.
You want to head straight to Maxine, yeah?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
First of all, I just want to say the hours and the time and the care that Paul Wynne has put into this has been amazing. He's been working on his days off and all over the place. It is really exciting. I think we've got some real opportunities as a town council moving ahead, and it's up to us to be on the front foot with this, and we are being. Having a consultant to help us is really important. We're not going to use them more than we have to, and we're not going to pay them for dead time. So, that's why it's going to be a consultancy basis as opposed to a full-time member of staff, because there would be masses of dead weeks where they wouldn't do anything. So that is going to be used as and when, and sparingly, and with the thought very clearly on the usefulness, it being cost effective. So the whole point is that we need to really know what we're doing with this, and that's where we're going to get the help. In the meantime, a small group of us, Rob, Sheila, Rich and I, are soon going to be meeting with 3 or 4 town councils that have already gone through the unitary process, and we want to find out what went well, what didn't go well, what could have been improved, what what they've got and they don't want, what we've got to watch out for. And it's at the moment it looks like, and don't hold me to this, it looks like it's going to be coming together possibly on the 31st of March. Sheila has been amazing. Sheila and I have both rung or written to 2 councils each. The councils that we're going to talk to are Trowbridge, Shrewsbury, Falmouth and Chippenham. Paul, I said it without losing my words. Normally I can't say them all together, but I did it. And so this is a councillor to councillor discussion, because Paul already has an enormous number of discussions with other clerks, and so this is going to be from the councillor's point of view, and I think that's going to be a really useful discussion, and will guide us a lot, because many other councils have gone through this and there have been pitfalls, and we're going to try and avoid those and just get the very best for our town. What I think we all want is, looking ahead to when all this is done, we want our voice heard, and we want to take the frustration out of a lot of the things that can be done locally. I really do appreciate the support that Paul has given me leading on this. And it's a big thing to lead on, but I think we can really do it. And I also am really grateful to all the councillors who have contacted me, because you have really made some brilliant suggestions and really thought about this. So hopefully this is lighting everyone's fire, and we're going to move forward in a Frome kind of way to a really positive outcome when around us when Somerset does go unitary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maxine. John, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Yeah, no, thanks a lot for all the work. There's been so much effort gone in already. I was just thinking about, in terms of the consultant, contracting a consultant and the brief for the consultant. I'm not a big fan of spending precept on consultants, but for this, I think it is absolutely essential we get someone, because I think it'll be a huge aid to the whole team for us to get what Frome really wants out of this process. I think what I was thinking about actually is more about in the choice of the consultant. At the moment, Frome Town Council is neutral. We're not siding with either. But at some stage we might want to get off the fence and go for one more than another. And I sort of want this to be held, in mind during the selection process for the consultant, but also in the final brief that we have the chance as counselors to actually say, actually, we think it needs to go this direction. We finally realize this is what it is, because depending on which proposal comes forward, there's a lot of background work that needs to be done. And I think, so I was going to introduce an amendment to this effect, but I think actually talking it through with other counselors and looking at the brief, I think it's adequately open that's still a possibility. But I just wanted to raise that here in this discussion now before we vote on this, that we really need to reserve the right to actually shift gears midstream with whoever we're assigning to, if we need to develop links with Somerset or with some other district in a different way, that we can actually rechannel that efforts of that consultant, because this is our one bite at the cherry using a consultant to do this. So, and the selection's important because the channels into these different levels of government are very different. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Maxine, do you want to come back to that, or shall I go through a few questions and then between
no, I won't be able to hold them all in my mind at once.
Okay, all right, Maxine, you go.
I just want to thank John for, he's had some amazing discussions with me over the last few days about this and has really put a lot of thought into all of this. Absolutely agree. Trust us, we're not going to choose anyone as a consultant who is going to not do what we want them to do. And I think the most important thing is that, we keep up our level of enthusiasm, and the communication that we've got with all the councillors on board and involved is really important. There will be times, of course, when we need to have discussions, with a consultant, but I can't see that and there won't be any big decisions that are made without all the councillors actually playing a part in it. So I just want you to be reassured, John, and thank you for your input over the last few days.
Good stuff. Nick Dove.
Thank you, Chair. I think I made this point before, and it's not original to me, but this is the biggest thing that's going to happen to us for years. And I think it's really, really important we gather as much information as we can in advance of any decision making. And I know John's made some really good suggestions on his blog. I really like that. But it's about getting, expert opinion, first-hand experience from other councils where they had that, which you're doing. And it's in danger of everyone thanking everyone at this meeting. But Max, I got to say, really, really grateful for the way you've taken this on and led it and involved other people. You've not sort of played it with your cards close to the chest. You've actually involved, shared ideas, sought ideas. It's been really helpful, and thank you for taking it on. I wouldn't have been way above my pay grade, so thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully you'll still be saying that in a year.
Oh, this is nice. Rob, you're up next.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I just wanted to hang on Nick's coattails on that. I just feel, reading through all the paperwork that we've been given, and just listening to Paul Wynne and others talking about this and the other meetings we've been to, I just feel really confident that we are actually addressing this huge challenge. And I think it's important that perhaps, the residents of the town know that we are really taking this very seriously. And I feel personally very confident we will do our best that can be done in relation to trying to make the best of the opportunity that's coming.
Thank you, Rob. Nick, is your digital hand still up from before, or are you wanted to jump in again? Okay, excellent. Rachel.
So we have Linda Oliver and Martin Dimry who both like to say something. And Christopher Bennett has asked, are you, the FEC, actually reaching out to the surrounding parishes? Phrased slightly oddly, from Chris Bennett from Selwood Parish.
Just very quickly, we will certainly reach out to the surrounding parishes. They're a key constituent and an important element of the brief for the advisor. So certainly.
Paul.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I'd like to add my my thanks to everyone that's worked hard on this. I just wanted to ask a quick question, really. Apologies if I've missed it somewhere, but I wondered, Maxine, you talked about the employing consultants being cheaper than employing a member of staff. But I wonder if is there a budget put to this? Is there a maximum that we're prepared to spend on a consultant or not?
Well, that's a good question. When we had Mel come and talk to us, he was talking 25 grand, but we don't think, well, I don't want to say for definite because we don't know how much work there's going to be, but we don't think it's going to be nearly that much, because maybe Paul can tell us all the work that Mel did, how much that cost, and that was quite a lot of hours. So maybe we can get it into some sort of context when we look at that. Paul, can you just remind me what that was, all in?
I'm sorry, I haven't got that number to hand, Maxine. But
sorry, put you on the spot.
I mean, it would be wrong to sort of bandy about day rates on this sort of thing. But I think perhaps the best thing to do, Maxine, would be to sort of find out if there are any advisors who would want to be in the pot, and to find out how much they would cost, and we can bounce that back to counsellors and just sort of test the water in that way.
I think the most important thing is to say there won't be any money spent without everybody agreeing it. There will be money spent on it, but the hope is that any money that is spent on a consultant, we're going to be getting back, because they're going to advise us so that we know how to respond to the negotiations in a really successful way, and what we want to do. But I don't. So Paul Horton, the answer to your question is I don't know the exact amount at the moment. I think also because what we don't know is whether we're just going to use a consultant up to when the shadow authority comes in. Is that the right word for it, Paul? Yeah, thank you. Or whether we're then going to go on and use the consultant to help us with the actual negotiations moving forward. That is something we all need to agree together. And it's not something that Paul and I are going into just going to agree between us. That's something for you all to agree. So as the finances go forward, everyone will be involved in what we're going to spend and how we're going to take this forward. Is that all right, Paul Horton?
Andy, I think Linda and Martin were queued up. Is that right, Rachel?
Yeah. I think they're ready.
And then Andy Palmer.
Okay. Do that.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Evening, councillors, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I apologise if I'm saying something that you already know, because I've not seen your report, but I thought it might be useful to actually give you an update, because I sat on the scrutiny committee, the joint scrutiny committee yesterday, that was considering the reports regarding the Stronger Somerset proposal. And I think Frome Town Council are in the same position as Somerset County Council have been, in that they've commissioned independent help in analysing the Stronger Somerset report. And they've done this in an evidence-based way and tried to be in a balanced way, rather than negatively looking at the individual organisations that form that Stronger Somerset report. And you might find it very useful, if you've not done already, to actually go onto the One Somerset site, where you can link into the reports from some industry-wide, well-known professors, one on adult social care, one on children's services, PricewaterhouseCoopers report, and a guy on economy, planning and transport services, something you've talked about a lot today. These reports were presented to the Policy and Place Scrutiny Committee on the 10th of March, and then yesterday they went to other scrutiny committees. And of the councillors on that committee who could vote, 10 voted for moving this forward with a response to the government, which they've asked for, and 3 abstained. And of the abstentions, there was only 1 that asked a question. For me, that showed either ambivalence or that they hadn't really got any real concern about it. Today it went to Cabinet. It went to Cabinet not to actually scrutinise it, but actually to discuss the points that were raised in the scrutiny discussions, and there were plenty of them. For me, I'd read all the reports before the meeting, and I had a number of questions I wanted the authors to be able to expand on, because they were very careful to be non-committal and be totally objective. But I just asked them exactly what you've been talking about now, about comparisons with other councils and other unitaries and the pros and cons of those sort of things. So we teased quite a lot out of them. If you go to the cabinet papers from today's meeting, from 223 on the pages to 240, you can see a summary of a summary of what those reports said. And I think it might help you, and it certainly would help your consultant. I'm not saying you might agree with everything, or he or she, but it will give them a flavour of what the discussions are and have been, and what have been supported through a cross-party scrutiny committee. The chairman of the Adults Scrutiny Committee, Hazel Price-Sankey, she's a Lib Dem, she said, why fix it when it's not broken? Because there's an improvement journey around adult social care and children's services, and they're pretty key and paramount to providing the right care to communities. And there was a lot of stuff came out about Somerset being an exemplar on some of those things. So it was great to learn. We probably understate some of those successes, but I think you'll find them very well balanced. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That was very good. I appreciate you've been waiting a long time for that. So thank you. Martin, you are up next.
Thanks. I'd just like to say that as one of those councillors that abstained, I actually do care very much. But we've got to remember that the consultation were companies that were paid to look at the opponents' studies and propositions and do an assessment of them. In other words, the one Somerset, which actually comes from the county council, essentially, that's their proposal, commissioned reports on the stronger Somerset. And what we were considering yesterday was effectively the weaknesses in the stronger Somerset case, rather than the strengths I felt of the one Somerset case. I didn't feel there was anything to vote on. That's simply why I didn't vote. I felt it was a sort of foregone conclusion at that meeting. But rather than justifying my position on it, I just wanted to make a couple of constructive suggestions. I was pleased that Chris Bennett put in a suggestion at the earlier on from Selwood Parish, because any devolution of powers locally won't necessarily come straight to Frome Town Council. They will be more regionalised than that, and I think you will have to look at the parishes in this northeast corner of Somerset as more of a whole, because you're going to be possibly working with them on planning as well in the future. When you propose, one thing that I really think that the council should support is to ensure as much as possible that community boards and area planning boards do happen, because I'm not sure, I think I'm right in saying these were promised in Dorset and they never happened. I think you might find in Wiltshire they happen rather sporadically and less functionally. I don't know, they're not as successful as you would like, and these things can easily be lost, and you may find yourself governed from Yeovil or probably, in my view, Taunton. So I think that you've got to be very careful with that to ensure that you do get the outsourced ability to do the things you want to do. And also in your consultation, I'd suggest go to Trowbridge by all means, but have a look at somewhere like Salisbury or Marlborough, somewhere that's more on the fringes of the county, not somewhere that's central. I find that in a cross-party sense, those people that seem to be most enthusiastic about the One Somerset scheme, certainly in the opposition parties, tend to be more local to Taunton, perhaps even Bridgewater, where there's a strong area of population. I think we're in danger of being forgotten up here yet again. And so go to somewhere like Salisbury and see how they feel about a lot of their power that as a district council being devolved to Trowbridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Saw a lot of flinching when you mentioned Taunton. It was interesting. As Maxine.
Thank you. Thank you to Linda and Martin for your input. You know, it's really helpful. It'd be really good to have discussions. One thing I want to say, Martin said you will find you have to work with surrounding parishes. We want to work with surrounding parishes, so it's an active desire to do that rather than you have to. So that's something we're really looking forward to doing. As far as any local boards, whatever they're going to be called, it really is fundamental that we have to have a say on those and not, you know, just be there observing. So, you know, I think anyone, you know, any side that is that wants to get us, you know, on side, that is going to be fundamental to something that, you know, we want to properly be heard at any area networks. So, you know, that, yeah, that's absolutely fundamental. I have heard things, and also thank you, Martin, for the suggestion of other councils that we should talk to. This is an initial discussion with these 4 councils, but we will obviously be reaching out to others and talking to others, and I think that's a really good suggestion. Any more suggestions, throw them our way, because we're happy for any suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As Andy Palmer.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, I just reiterating what's already been said by the likes of Nick and others. This is the most important process that we're going to go through from a local authority point of view for generations, and it's key that we get it right, and it's key that we do our part right. And just coming back to the consultant piece, I personally haven't got a concern over the cost. I think you pay for what you get, and from a personal point of view, it comes down to value rather than the underlying, say, day rate for whoever we get involved. So for me, I think that's really got to be the key to this appointment. And yeah, again, just to reiterate, Max, fantastic work. Thank you very much for the effort you've put in. Paul, the paper that you sent us and the brief was excellent. So thank you again. And yeah, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. And you know, this is going to be something that affects everyone in the town and the area and the outlying parishes that we're keen to work for generations. So keen to get this right and excited to move forward with it.
Thank you, Andy. Anyone else? No.
Laura, can you bring the recommendations up, please?
Yes, thank you.
I don't think we should read all that out. There's an awful lot of words there.
We just give people a minute and then okay, so how would we like to do this? We're going to do one at a time.
The body language I'm seeing, Andy, is do it all together.
All together, yeah.
All together. Okay, so can I have a proposer? Nick Dove. Can I have a seconder? Steve Tanner. And then all in favour.
can't see Mark Dorrington's hand up or down, Mark, because you're off. Oh, yeah, you got your hand up. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And Steve Tanner, is your hand up? Yep. That's unanimous then, Andy. Thanks, everyone. Much appreciated.
Harmony. Okay, we're going to move on now to the last agenda, which is to update on the transfer of the Boyle Cross from Mendip District Council. So, Peter, you're up again.
Well, we're going to finish with some good news for you. At least I hope you'll feel that that's the case. You've been waiting for a long time for news of progress in terms of the promised transfer. We have been pushing hard. I think that things came to a head recently when Anne, Maxine, Paul and myself met with Ros Wyke and with Richard Pinnock and also Tracy Aarons from Mendip District Council. There are a number of items on the agenda, but one of those that we discussed was the transfer of Bull Cross, and we've now had some good news, which is that Mendip are prepared to transfer the freehold of the land for £1. They will be paying £9,000 as a dowry to help with the cost of maintaining the fountain. We will also be receiving a payment at the end of this month to cover the cost of maintaining the fountain over the last year, and that's something which is required under the terms of the current Bull Cross Joint Committee Agreement. We can hold markets on the land, and with no market rights fee payable, provided that no more than 5 stalls are involved. So that's certainly good news. And there is an opportunity also for us to apply for an annual premises license for the site. Now, what that will mean is that we can hold events on the site with which relates to things like the sale of alcohol or what is known as regulated entertainment, which is basically amplified music. Those things will be able to happen with that annual premises license. And so we're moving that one along as quickly as we can, and the hope is that that will be completed and agreed when the transfer is completed. And the other good news, and I know we've talked about this for a long time about red tape. There will be no permission required for small-scale events on the site in the way that they have in the past. So all of these things now are coming together, and we're working towards getting this transfer completed by the end of April. So, as I say, really ending the agenda tonight with a good news item, I think.
Lovely job. Shall we do a? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, I'm seeing lots of hands raised, digital hands, and I'm going to go across my screen. I'm going to start. Well, let's just switched up again. I'm going to go with Nick Dove.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Peter, for that. Just is that date sort of written in the blood of the Mendip chief executives, etc., or is that just the next update is at the end of April?
No, everyone's working towards getting this transfer finished by the end of April. We want it to happen. They want it to happen. So, hopefully it will.
I'll buy you a drink if it happens then, Peter. Thank you very much.
John Nelson, you're up next.
Okay, thank you. Just quickly, I'm just wondering why we should not actually insist upon, instead of having an annual license, that we just have a permanent license. It seems odd that it's a freehold that we own, and we'll have to maintain, and we're still going to have to apply for permission. I really am really impressed that we can put market stalls on there, but I still think we should push them a little bit harder, because in a way, we're modeling for what, the transfer of assets under the unitary. So I wonder if we could just push it a little harder and say, why annual? Why should we have to apply every year? That seems like just bureaucracy to me.
Peter?
I think this is to do with the licensing laws, because this is very much like a license that a pub or a club might need to apply for on a regular basis. It's exactly the same principle. I think I'm right on that. Am I, Rachel?
Yeah. Yes, it's exactly the same principle. The town hall has to apply every year. It's the process.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's what we established on the Boyle Cross group meeting.
Thank you.
A couple of years ago.
Thank you, guys. Rob.
Thank you. Yes, a couple of questions, Peter. It's great that this is happening. First one was that in your report, you said that given that one of the contractual obligations will be to keep the Boyle Cross in good repair, I was wondering whether you could perhaps amplify on quite what that actually means. There are suggestions that we might actually turn the fountain into some kind of plantery. I don't know whether that constitutes looking after the Boyle Cross in the way that the contractual obligations oblige us to do.
Well, it's actually open to interpretation, which might actually be in our favour. But I think that the expectation is that we will keep what we've created, because obviously we've put in a fair amount of investment into Boyle Cross, in recent years. We'll keep it in good condition. We'll look after the fountain. We'll look after the bench that's gone in. We'll look after the paving, in a way that people would expect us to. But it is open to interpretation.
So I suppose really what I'm asking is the fountain an integral part of Boyle Cross, or is it just happens to be a nice extra that somehow is currently part of what Boyle Cross is, how it's constituted?
I think actually it will be up to us to decide what's important
So
for the future.
my second question was in relation to the 5 stalls. What happens about the Frome Independent market once a month?
That 5-stall arrangement relates to markets that we may want to put on, as opposed to others putting on, that may be subject to the normal market rights fee requirement. So and in fact, any market that's over 5 stalls, there is a requirement to pay a market rights fee to Mendip. We can't get away from that. It's not something we have control over.
But then they will be having part of their market on some of our land.
That's right. I mean, I think the issue of you may have noticed from my report that the issue of markets in the future on our land is something that we need to discuss further. I mean that isn't fixed at this moment in time. It's for us to have those discussions with the operators, be they Mendip District Council or the Frome Independent, or indeed anyone else. Those are not. I don't think we're regarding resolving those arrangements as a condition of signing the agreement with Mendip. But hopefully we can get those things sorted out, in the not too distant future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rachel.
Drew would like to come in and make a point, please.
Drew, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I just wanted to back up Peter on this and say that I'm absolutely delighted that this has happened. I think it's a really great outcome for everybody. But what I would really just like to instill is that behind the scenes at Mendip, there is a great deal of goodwill, vim, and vigour to make this happen. So, you know, these aren't just soft words. They're backed up by really strong intention, and I've got a very good feeling about this. So let's keep it all going in the right direction. That's what I'm saying, and I think it's a great outcome for everyone. Thank you.
Excellent, good stuff. I'm seeing a lot of fidgeting from all of you guys.
Andy Palmer's had his hand up for a while. Andy.
Andy, if you can make it brief, that would be fantastic. Thank you, mate.
Well, I'll try my best. Peter, congratulations. Thanks for all the work you put in on this. Same to other councillors and staff who have been party to these negotiations and discussions. Well done to Mendip for agreeing to pass this over. Ultimately, if it comes back to us, we can decide what we do with it, how we maintain it, whatever decisions that come about. It's the right result, and we'll carry it forward. So again, thanks, Peter.
Shall we just do one more before we all go? This is not happening every time, but this time we're doing it. I think we're at the end, I believe.
Yep.
Paul, yes.
Just the next meeting's on the 19th of May, and at the moment we're expecting that to be via Zoom, but you never know.
Get deodorant just in case, people. All right. Yeah, can I put an end to this now? Can I put a pin in it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Andy. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Andy. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.